Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Magrann and I'm a queer cyborg game designer living in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm going to talk to you today about how to GM marginalized NPCs. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to keep up to date with everything I'm making. And also check out my Patreon, the link is below, to support what I'm doing here with my design vlog and creating analog experimental games. Now that a lot of the symptoms of dizziness are kind of wearing down, a lot of my pain symptoms are coming back, which is what the drug was for, so I'm hoping those will pass. But in the meantime, I decided to do some makeup that was, I don't know, kind of sea witchy. So I feel like this is relevant for, you know, NPC tropes and villains. See Ursula in The Little Mermaid. Which brings me to my first topic, which is get familiar with problematic tropes. So, you know, in movies, in games, and stories, there's all kinds of tropes that exist that are well known and documented on the internet. You can Google them, actually. A good resource for this is TV tropes. On TV tropes, it shows both positive and negative tropes. Like, just because it's a trope doesn't mean it has to be bad. But a lot of tropes, unfortunately, when it comes to marginalized characters, are not the best. So back to my Ursula example, you know, she has a lot of queer coding, which a lot of Disney villains do. So try not to make your villains queer, or all of them at least. It's not bad to have queer villains, right? But it is bad if all of your villains are queer. So kind of pay attention to the tropes, get to know them a little bit better. Some other good ones are to avoid are damsel in distress. You know, that's a very popular one in gaming, an easy one to slip into. Don't have, you know, NPCs that need rescuing always be women. Consider the race of your villains. Don't have all your villains be black or dark-skinned. You know, those are familiar tropes within the genres that we work in role-playing games that we want to familiarize ourselves with and avoid. Number 2, listen to your players. If your players are a little uncomfortable with a character you just introduced them to, if there's something that they bring up to you that maybe you didn't know before, listen to that and change it. So you have the ability as the GM, you know, or facilitator to change any element of characters or narrative in your setting that you want to. And it's good to kind of get agreement with everyone at the table too, so that you have kind of consent about what's going on. But changing the gender, race, you know, ability, sexuality of a character because you all notice there's something problematic with it, that's great. You've noticed the problematic thing, figure out how you can fix it. This is like when I'm watching a movie and I'm like, oh, I wish the writers had noticed they did this thing. It's so frustrating. You know, it's such a common mistake. You know, when you're playing games, you can change that because you are all the authors of the game. Number 3, use your empathy. Put yourself in that character's shoes. If you find yourself, you know, role-playing as a specific NPC and something is making you uncomfortable or isn't sitting right with you, but you're not sure what it is, maybe pause and listen to that, you know, and stop what you're doing, maybe adjust it as you're GMing, right, as you're running the game. And then maybe later go back and look some stuff up or discuss it with your players, like, I didn't feel right about this, but I wasn't sure what was wrong. We can't be familiar with all of the tropes all of the time, but sometimes, like, especially when I'm watching movies, I'll get like this feminist dar, like, there's something wrong with this scene, but I'm not quite sure what it is. And then after the movie, I'll go and like Google it and lo and behold, often there will be someone else who has figured this out for me, who can explain what that radar feeling was that I was getting. I should come up with a better name for that. But, you know, I think, you know, trust your empathy, trust your feelings. It can't hurt to, you know, be a little bit cautious when it comes to marginalized characters, and sensitivity and empathy towards marginalized people. Number 4, remember to include all kinds of marginalized characters as NPCs, whether they're, you know, villains or just other characters that the PCs might meet, or characters that might need their help. So, you know, this is not all inclusive, but these are the big ones. You know, you want to look at gender, race, sexuality, ability, and class. You know, those are the big things that tend to be marginalized, like, tend to encompass marginalized people in the US at least. And so when we're creating games together, when we're creating stories and narratives, we want to be sure to try and be inclusive and remember there's all different kinds of people who are marginalized. It's not just gender, it's not just race. And also consider people who might be, you know, if you're telling a story in India, do a little bit of research about how all of those things affect each other so that you can kind of represent a complex Indian city or Indian town that isn't just like one type of stereotypical Indian person, right? So when you can try and include all of those things, your NPCs become more inclusive and more representative of the world that they live in. Okay, and number 5, this is the big one. A lot of us are privileged who are GMing. You know, we might be white, we might be cis, we might be, you know, of a higher class than somebody else. And so with that privilege, we have to remember that we might make mistakes. You know, we might not understand everything about the struggle that marginalized people have to go through. And so, you know, if you mess up, if you realize you're messing up in the moment, just pause, apologize to everyone, including yourself, right? We all make mistakes. And try to fix it and move on. You know, I've made mistakes GMing with marginalized characters billions of times. Even ones that I fit into, like categories I fit into, like with women or queer women, or, you know, genderqueer trans people. I've turned women into damsels in distress. I've, you know, made uncomfortable allusions towards maybe sexual assault and things that might come up that are kind of natural for us as storytellers because they're part of the storytelling landscape in the US. But sometimes as soon as I do it, I'm like, oh God, why did I just do that? Like, I'm a feminist, I love women, I love myself. Why would I fall into this trope? And so, you know, it's really easy for me to just be like, oops, I messed up. That's obviously ridiculous. I'm going to fix that and I'm going to turn that victim into a dude instead. Or I'm going to turn, you know, someone who needs saving into, you know, into not a woman, basically. Just as an example. I've also recently tried to write not super great stereotypes into my villains. I tried to make all these sirens that I was working on dark-skinned because, you know, they were associated with the night and with darkness and like all this stuff. So they would be like black as the night sky and that kind of thing. But, you know, the person I was working with was like, hey, Kira, maybe we should avoid the dark-skinned villain thing. And I was like, oh, you're right, we should. I mean, even if one person thinks that it might be wrong, there's probably more people who haven't spoken up that think it's wrong. So just try to remember to apologize. We're all gonna mess up. I've messed up. I mess up constantly. But, you know, you have to fail a few times in order to learn some things. So get ready to apologize. And those are my 5 basic tips on how to GM marginalized characters and NPCs. So what sorts of marginalized NPCs are in your games or campaigns right now? like, what are your least favorite marginalized NPC tropes? I know I have a few. Put them in the comments below. Let me know. And, you know, please like and subscribe again if you do like these videos. I'm trying to post every few days, so to create some great design vlog commentary for you. And videos like this that just kind of contain tips in them for GMs and designers alike. And players, I guess, because GMs are players. So thanks so much, everyone. I'll see you next video. Please don't use snakes as villains in your stories. Kira will be very sad. Also, snakes are really important for the ecosystem, and they eat lots of pests and help prevent the spread of disease. Even venomous ones, especially them, like rattlesnakes and cottonmouths and stuff. PSA.